We will be there to demand equity in education, to challenge environmental injustices, to advocate for economic opportunity in every corner of this country. We will fight for the rights of women, for our LGBTQIA siblings, and for all who are told that their voice doesn't matter. We will not rest until every person, no matter their color, gender, or income, has a seat at the table. For 10 years, we have marched, we have shouted, we have stood in the face of oppression. We will not stop. We know that the path forward is not easy. The challenges are great, but so is our resolve. As we look forward in the next 10 years, we will carry with us the spirit of those who come before us and the hope for those who will come after us. Next Generation Action Network, 10 years of action, 10 years of change, 10 years of justice, and we are just getting started.
Thank you guys again for joining our live. For those who were here earlier, you might have noticed that we kind of disappeared. There was some technical difficulties on our sound, but we are back. We'll just go ahead and recap the introductions again for those people who are now just joining the live who didn't make it earlier. I'm Elle at the Next Generation Action Network. I'm the head of the media and programming here that we just recently launched to tell stories like Nia's and BLACKLIT. To kind of give you an understanding of why we're here to begin with is NGAN ended up taking Nia through our legal advocacy fund, took Nia's case and BLACKLIT. Essentially, BLACKLIT is a bookstore in Farmers Branch, and over the past year, they've been having harassment issues along with other Black-owned businesses in that same retail space. And so once NGAN and Dominique heard about this, we knew that we wanted to support her in any way we can through advocacy. And as some of you may know, NGAN is the largest human advocacy and human rights group in North Texas. So we'll just hop straight into it.
Let's do it.
We want to start with why you started BLACKLIT, how you started BLACKLIT, for those who don't know.
Yeah, so my name is Nia Taylor Clark. I started, I was an English teacher, and I started BLACKLIT to be a solution. One of my students made a comment, I don't read Miss, I'm Black, and for me, that was a trigger to let me know, like, okay, it's time to do something, and I wanted to do what I could in my power. And so I decided to start a subscription box. And so BLACKLIT, it's called BLACKLIT because it's a reminder that you can be both Black and literate, like Black and whatever you want to be. But we started as a subscription box to highlight Black authors and entrepreneurs, and then we transitioned to a bookstore because we realized that the human interaction is still needed. We want people to be able to see themselves. We realize the barriers in representation, the barriers in access, and then also the conversation that needs to be had that you just can't do through like the box and through the mail sometimes.
Nice. I mean, you went into like the transition from the box to the actual store. And I'm actually, just so that people know too, because you actually host events out of there too. And like people host podcasts, you have like Black Men Talk and all those. So kind of talk about how you guys kind of are like a hub, a cultural hub for that community.
So people can rent out the space to host their own private events, but we do host several community events, from open mic nights to game nights to our Therapy Thursdays, where we help match the community with therapists in the community. There's Bible studies there, there's story times for kids. Daddy Stroller Club came and read to the kids one day. That was super, super nice. We have organizations like Black Men Build who come and meet there. And we just like to be a resource for our community to just have a safe space.
Yes, especially in a suburb like Farmers Branch that is not completely welcoming to the community. I remember even yesterday when we had the community event, which we had a community event, we're gonna recap that. There was other people who were not, either they were people of color, not Black, or even a white woman who was raised in Farmers Branch, and how they've seen this kind of happen before, and they're sad to see BLACKLIT kind of go out because there isn't spaces in those type of suburbs where there is a cultural hub for Black people.
And it was just a reminder that this is not like a BLACKLIT bookstore issue. Like this is a way bigger issue. Like it goes back to systemic issues that we are just amplifying. Like if I had like the, oh, I'm scared, let me run moment. Now it's like the, okay, I'm here, let me fight moment. Let me let people know what's going on. Let me, like, I was able to build a platform on Instagram with sharing books, and I wanted to be able to use that to let people know what's going on. Like, Black businesses aren't leaving and bookstores aren't closing because we don't want to exist. We're closing because of some of these issues and barriers to existing. And it's just like, I don't know why people are threatened by people giving out books and being a resource to the community, but we can't just continue to let spaces like this close.
Exactly. We have Quentin back here moderating the chat, so we'll just take a quick pause to see if anybody's asking any questions regarding BLACKLIT.
Currently not yet. We're still getting our people flowing and going.
Okay. But actually, I do want to touch on that because you were mentioning like that there was, I don't know if they feel threatened or what that is, because even with, like you said, it's not just a BLACKLIT issue and it's not just a Black bookstore issue. We know largely, and especially with the election and everything that is going on and them wanting to remove the Department of Education, before that even happened, we see that like certain states and even here in Texas, them making it an initiative to take Black books and people of color books out of the school system.
Yeah.
And like as a former teacher who like started a privatized business where you're like, okay, they're doing this publicly, but I'm gonna start something privately where people do have a resource and still being
I think the unfortunate part is it does make some people uncomfortable, but I feel like if the person doing the harassment had enough guts to show up to our community meeting last night, then we need to have enough guts to show up and fight for it, and just show that this is something that we will not stand for. And so with that being said, we have made the decision to relocate out of Farmers Branch, and we are now prioritizing spaces in Dallas, in a community where we will be supported, where we will have the resources to be successful. And so I know we did like a post just asking people where they wanted us to be in the DFW Metroplex. And we want to honor those voices, we honor that feedback, but at the same time, we want to let you all know that we are doing everything we can to find a space that is not only safe, but also accessible, affordable, and just able to exist.
Okay. What if there's some people that are saying, okay, why did you have to move though? Like you're talking about, oh, fight back, then why didn't you stay and fight back? Why didn't you, for people who maybe are new to like the situation and don't understand like the level of threat and harassment, if you want to just kind of go into detail, because we're talking about being empowered and stuff. And also for people who are like, oh, those type of things don't happen these days. This is 2024. No one's saying, like, if you don't mind like getting into some of the kind of like high-key crazy things people were saying.
I think, so with fighting, we are dealing with harassment. The person lives in the building of BLACKLIT. So that's one avenue of it. But one of the reasons why I really feel like it's time for us to exit is we are also fighting the people that are in control. Like the property management company, it wasn't like, they're not strangers. They have access to our information and they gave out our information willingly. That should not happen. And so we would like to be covered in under management that supports our vision, but also cares about the safety of their residents, their tenants, and you know, like that is a priority. And so that is one of the reasons. And then two, unfortunately, you just don't know how crazy people are. And for people to show up like at our homes and where we live and just target women the way that they do, we want to be surrounded by people that are going to join us in making sure we are protected.
And for those who are, again, just joining, or maybe you don't know the backstory, there was a particular individual who seemed to be, allegedly has been targeting the Black women events, because BLACKLIT does have events where it is just strictly or exactly for men, but for whatever reason this person continues to come and harass, not only on the outside but has come in the store, has intimidated, harassed, even forcing allegedly underage persons to give their information.
And it's just, they're relentless. Like, we have the no trespass warning, we have the restraining order.
And this, I feel like this is just a typical, it's sad because in the 60s, Malcolm X said that the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. And here we are, 2024, I'm not gonna mess up, however many years later, it goes from the 60s to 2024, we see this as a prime example with BLACKLIT, where you've made over a dozen police reports, you've made constant complaints to your leasing agency, and let's be honest, had this probably been a white-owned business, it would have been taken care of on day one. And so I guess maybe talk about how,
it's a lack of urgency. It's a lack of support. And then it's also a lack of awareness. Like, a lot of people don't know we were located there. And so I do appreciate everyone who has come together to help, but some people didn't even know we were there. And so we want to be in a place where people can easily get to, where there's more traffic for people to get to us, but where there's also more concern for not just our well-being, but the community's well-being. We're not the only business located there. We're not the only business that he has harassed. Our neighbors at In Living Color, we have been working together to make sure, like, both businesses are able to stay safe from calling each other like, hey, he's outside, lock the door, or like, it should not have to be like that.
And again, we're just having this conversation to demand justice, to demand the protection of Black women, to demand urgency and, like, protecting the Black communities, and to hold accountable the leasing department, to hold accountable Farmers Branch Police Department, which you're not the first person I've heard about this. I was just talking to one of my best friends, Janae, and like, her sister had an issue with Farmers Branch. There is another issue with, I have another friend, which I won't even get into that case, but like ended up having to take it to court with Farmers Branch. So there is a systemic issue. Even yesterday, we were at the community meeting, multiple people bringing up how Farmers Branch, when it came to illegal immigrants and how they took it up almost up to the Supreme Court, and just this larger issue. And there are allies, which we did see yesterday, but I mean, quite frankly, not enough.
Not enough. And even still, I know we touched on the problem, but I don't want to end this without touching on the solutions. Like, last night was amazing. We were able to get a lot of work done. One, in terms of security, I just appreciate just the commitment that the Black men made in the room to even show up and be a presence at the bookstore, and even having them brainstorm and think about ways they can support other businesses, and just making sure, like, hey, nobody's about to be opening or closing the store alone anymore. I just thought it was so beautiful. And then
because I feel like a lot of times, like, I feel like this conversation, when we focus specifically on BLACKLIT, is like a microcosm, but then there's the macrocosm. So it just reminds me of like the microcosm being like seeing this community get together, and the macrocosm being like, what's going on politically, and us feeling like, oh, we're never gonna get it from the higher people in our governments, and it's like up to the people to demand what they want, and coming together. And like, yesterday was just like a beautiful like display that, especially like when people say Black men do not show up,
they showed up yesterday.
They showed up. We Dominique provided security, so we made sure that we had security out there who were Black men. Even the guys who came up with the solution of like, how are we going to solve this security issue within BLACKLIT? Even when we move, there's still going to be, so don't even try it.
Even our pop-up location. Like, yes, we very much intend to open up a new bookstore, and we're actively searching for a new location. But in the meantime, we don't want books to collect dust. We don't want communities to go unserved, and we don't want to let them have that much control to stop the work that we're doing. And so just sitting down and being able to plan like the BLACKLIT Christmas pop-up here in the Metroplex, where we can continue to showcase Black-owned businesses, we can continue to provide resources and literacy things for students. And so please keep that on your radar, everybody, because we do, we'll be having the BLACKLIT Christmas pop-up coming soon.
Yes, and we're actually, Quentin, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so we do have a couple of viewers asking the location.
The location.
Yeah.
So we would like to have our realtor come so that you all can meet her and she can give us some information.
Are they asking for the current location?
So they're just wanting heads up, like where the location will be next. And I know we're going to get into that in a little bit in the next segment.
In the next segment, we will have our realtor come up here just in just a little bit to give you all details on the area, price point, things like that. But if you do have some areas where you want us to be, go ahead and put it in the chat so we can see that. Because right after this, we're going out to look at a few buildings and we want to make sure we don't miss anything. So if you have some areas or some ideas, please put that in the chat.
Yeah. Is that kind of like the only questions regarding location?
Yeah.
Honey, they want to pull up. They want to know where BLACKLIT is. They want to support. I love that. I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll definitely.
And I know that some of the viewers was having a little trouble with audio. So if you go to the link in BLACKLIT's bio, you can directly join the live on YouTube. So you should be able to clearly hear audio there as well. So I know some of the
Yes,
on
sorry.
Instagram.
If you're having audio issues, please click the link in our bio. NGAN, they got a lot more fancier equipment than we have. So on there, you can click their link and have access to it with microphones and camera switching and things like that.
Yeah, and actually, before we even get into all of that too, reminder, if you haven't already, and if you're just hearing about BLACKLIT's story and Nia's story, make sure you go to BLACKLIT's Instagram page in the bio and sign the petition.
Please sign the petition. Right now we have over 1,000 signatures, but we don't want to just show up to court as one woman and one business. We want to show up letting the city and letting them know that this is a bigger issue that needs to be solved. And so again, trial is coming up right now at December 13th. And so we really want to get as many signatures as possible.
Please, yes, support. It takes 2 seconds. You go to the bio and you just
sign your name. And
exactly. And okay, speaking about support, how are some other ways that I know yesterday, which Leyland, her realtor, is going to come up and she has, the books are my love language so they can buy the merch. But is there any other ways that they can support?
So we do not have access to our inventory right now. Right before we moved out, we did like a big pay what you can sale to kind of eliminate the need for so much storage. But bookshop.org is an amazing organization and website that really supports independent bookstores. So think Amazon, but when you buy books, a percentage of that goes to independent bookstores, and you don't just have to support BLACKLIT, you can support any independent bookstore all over. And so you can do BLACKLIT today, Pan-African tomorrow. You can literally, you can just support that way. So bookshop.org. There's also the merch, as you mentioned, the petition you mentioned. Right now, those are
and make
priorities.
sure you follow her page. Is it just at BLACKLIT?
I am BLACKLIT. So if they follow I am BLACKLIT, I'm going to continue to try to post updates on there. As discussed last night, we are forming different committees. That way we can kind of divide, delegate, kind of conquer this thing. But we do have committees for security, for pop-ups, for people
brand
who want
ambassadors.
Brand ambassadors or people
so
who want to create content.
if you're on Book Talk and you have authors you follow or other bookstores, make sure you share this story, tag them, so that the word can get out.
And then we'll have for people who sign up for the community meeting and they want to be a part of a committee, if you fill out the Google form in our bio, we'll send you the link to the Zoom so that we can get you in breakout rooms with people who want to help. And you don't have to be located here in Dallas. We are really not just trying to bring awareness to what's happening with BLACKLIT, but also other bookstores. Like I was floored when I seen that only 6% of bookstores are Black owned and the nature in which they're closing. And I know many people would open up a bookstore if they had the resources.
Right.
And I have no problem sharing what I've learned during this process. I know several other bookstore owners that I can help you get in connection with. So please join those groups if you're interested.
Mm-hmm. And before we bring on Leyland and we cut to our commercial break, is there any kind of learning lessons, gold gems, like from this experience? I know you mentioned like yesterday you kind of took some time to step away from the situation to be able to like have a clear mind, and maybe like other people, because I feel like this is not unique to BLACKLIT and it's not unique to just a business. Like there's other people who are going through personal situations, or like, is there any kind of gold gems or learning lessons that you would, you know, takeaways?
I think one that really got me is when I was reminded of how silence is compliance, and just letting people shut you up and not using your voice is not beneficial. And so although I didn't like go and blast this person's face out of security issues, I couldn't let the situation just suck away BLACKLIT's voice. And so just trying to show up, whatever that looked like. I had no idea the video would do the traffic that it did. But that for me was a reminder that yes, we do have a story worth telling, and I want everybody to remember that they have a story worth telling too. Like, and whether your story is different, it doesn't matter. You have one worth telling, and there are so many different issues to be tackled. So pick one and fight for it. Like pick one and use your voice for it. Is one thing that this has really taught me.
And I know there's a lot of, like, I've seen through social media, a lot of people who want to be an ally to the Black community, Black businesses, and what advice would you give them? Like, you know, for instance, some of the people that showed up yesterday, which so grateful for, we had educators who were not Black, but like they just cared so much about this issue. But for, those who are like, you know, not maybe a person of color, or maybe a person of color but not Black, and they're like, okay, I really want to support not just BLACKLIT, but I want to support Black businesses, I want to support Black women. How do I show up?
I think that starts with one, listening to understand and not just to respond. One thing I appreciated about the room last night was just the empathy that was in there with our allies, but also just seeing that they didn't just come with something to say. They came and they took notes and they heard the different people in the room. And so I think allyship starts with listening to understand. Like we get enough people trying to suck our voice away. Don't add to it, you know? And I think, I think there are opportunities there. And I think there's this misconception that books by Black authors or Black books are just for Black people. No, there are an amazing Black writers and Black authors who write books that you can read too, and they're great. Like they're amazing. So grab a book by a Black author today, go read it, go share it, go diversify your library a little bit. And then I feel like that's another way to understand the stories, and that's another way to listen. Read.
And kind of like I just thought of this because I'm curious, and maybe the people are curious since you were a teacher and now like you own a bookstore. If there's like a book that you could recommend to people, and maybe you can tie it to this like particular this particular situation, I don't know. But if there is a certain author and book that you could recommend to people, what would it be?
That is a very tough question. I think there are books for different circumstances. I feel like is why it made me pause, but I feel like right now I'm in like my Cleo Wade like era. But I will say, I always have to say, when asked, the book The Hate You Give is what really helped birth this. Like that was the book I got my students to read from start to finish. That was like, that book not only changed their life, but mine. Like it really showed me tangibly the power of books. And if I ever have a bookstore, that book is gonna be on the show. That's one book that you know we got in stock. But just books I think there's a book for every situation, and I don't want to speak on behalf of all readers. But yeah.
I love that. I love that. That's a good choice. So thank you again for coming on. We're gonna cut to a quick commercial break, and we'll bring on Leyland, who's been like such an advocate in the real estate space to you.
Yeah.
And before we go to break,
yes,
we
but
had
before we go,
a
hold on.
question.
Okay, yes, we have some questions.
Yeah, so one of the questions were, are you coming to Fort Worth, Texas?
Girl, they want you in Fort Worth.
Big picture, you should see a bunch of Blacklits in a bunch of different places, okay? Right now, immediately though, we're going to Dallas.
Love that.
Our pop-ups though, we do several pop-ups a quarter, like over a dozen pop-ups a quarter in different locations, in different businesses, in different neighborhoods. And so if there's a place in Fort Worth that can host us for a pop-up or anywhere, let us know and we will absolutely pull up. But we're coming. We are coming.
Yes, BLACKLIT everywhere. A BLACKLIT store coming near you. And actually, before we cut to commercial break, I just thought of something that someone said yesterday. I can't remember if it was Bernadette or who said it yesterday at the meeting, but if you are one of those people where you're like, Dan, I'm in Farmers Branch and I don't, I hate to see these bookstores closing, or if you're in an area where a Black bookstore near you is closing, someone gave an awesome tip that I never thought of doing is go to your public libraries and put Black authors and Black books on the list. That is somewhere to start, because even you've had issues where you've gone to, you know, predominantly white neighborhood libraries and they won't even let you read.
This is a group effort, I will say, and it's gonna take all of us. It's not just gonna take one person's voice, and so, yeah, please go add Black authors to your local libraries.
Yes,
and I think a lot of time we feel like that the amplifying of our voices or the amplifying of stories has to be left to influencers, quote unquote. No, you have a page to whatever you're watching on. Post a book on your story today. Post a book on your story this week.
Right.
Ask people to read this book with you. Like little things like that matters. And just even having children, seeing books in your household makes a difference. Yeah. If you see books in your house and then they'll start to ask a question when they get to school, like why are there no books that look like where are they? Then they'll start to advocate for themselves. And so yes, please. Post a book today. Remind people not to just get lit, but get BLACKLIT. Like it really matters.
Yes, yes. And go to your local libraries and make sure you add those books to the list, because just what we discovered yesterday, it is a small group, minority of people who are actually showing up to physical libraries and putting those books on the list. And if you want to advocate or be an ally in any way to the Black author, Black book space, that is what we need to do. I've never done it before, and I'm going to make sure that I do that also. But yes, we'll be cutting over to our commercial break. This is Rated R, a new series diving into what it means when all three branches of the government are controlled by one party, the Republicans. With Trump returning to presidency, things are set to be very different from his first term. Now, the Republicans hold the majority in the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. This alignment of power means every decision could impact our laws, our rights, and the justice system, and shaping our future in ways that we just cannot ignore. Leading up to the inauguration, Rated R will break down the three branches of government, why this unified power matters, and how it could impact us all. We'll explore Trump's impact on education, the economy, healthcare, the environment, justice, foreign policy. But this series isn't just about information. We'll also talk about how we can mobilize and organize and ensure our voices are heard over the next 4 years so we can keep pushing forward and hold our elected representatives accountable, both federally and locally. So join us as we break down what's at stake in this unprecedented presidency and how each of us has the power to influence the future. Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay tuned to see how you, the next generation, can move the needle forward. I need water. So we're back, and you may notice that Nia's no longer sitting here. This is Leyland Sawyer. She's actually the real estate agent who has been advocating and searching for the new location that BLACKLIT will be. So if you want to get into it and
yeah, we've actually gone to see some properties, and they were incredible, but some of them were not built out. So as you can expect, that's going to be pretty pricey. Based on the square footage. We were looking at, on average, anywhere from 12 to 16,000 a month. So that's a lot of books to sell, and not that it's not possible, but we want to make sure that it makes sense. So we now are focusing in the Dallas area, and we're focusing on the Design District. We have Bishop Arts District, some downtown, Deep Ellum, so even Highland Park, uptown. So if you do have an area, or if you know of something or a building, or you drive by, feel free to message us so that we can take a look at it. We do want to make sure that we find the right space. We're not just looking for anything, we are looking for the right one, but we are exploring opportunities. We have narrowed it down to some that we're going to see even as early as right after this. So we're super excited, and we can't wait to see what we're able to find.
Nice, nice. Quentin, was there any specific questions in the chat about location, or they just want to know where? Where
it was?
Yes. So the question was, ideally, what locations were being looked at? I know you kind of hinted on that just now, but
is there a favorite right now?
The thing is, she has a really specific feel and a look that she wants to accomplish. So we're being very specific on that. And because Dallas is so, you can go a few streets over and you don't feel safe. When we're looking for something, safety is the priority. So that is what we're focused on. Is it in a shopping center? What's the level of security? Is it on a busy street? Is there easy access to parking? Parking is huge. With the events that they do, we want to make sure that she doesn't feel overwhelmed with having issues with parking. So we don't have a place in mind, but if I had to give you the top 3 places, I would definitely say the Design District. I would say, we're even looking at in the Highland Park area, I would say Bishop Arts, and then I think we could even say there's an area in Uptown that could possibly work, but with all things, it really does boil down to the numbers.
Okay. And I know, like, the whole conversation surrounding why she's moving is because of the continual harassment. Is that, I'm assuming that's also being considered, like, the security of the location.
The thing is, if you're somewhere in just a standalone building and you don't have a busy shopping center, are so many things that can take place. But if you're actually like in a strip center, or if you're somewhere where you have built rapport with your neighbors and you know that security is there, or if something happens, she could go literally to the street and say, you know, I need help, or to be able to say something. We want to focus on that. So something that's busy. So that is a priority, and those are the things that we're looking at when we look for a location.
So if you're in a shopping center and you want BLACKLIT to be your neighbor, let Leyland know, or BLACKLIT know.
Absolutely.
Oh, and yeah, it looks like we have a question from the chat.
So I know you just mentioned the ideal areas. I think specifically they're asking, are we going to make it a point to stay in the DFW area?
Yes, that is our priority right now, is to stay in Dallas. Just based on where we move, she could very well have the same issues. So we want to be mindful, if we're going to go to somewhere that's a suburb and she goes right back into the same issue, now we've taken her from one place and put her in a whole new environment, and she's faced with the same challenges. So within Dallas, she's going to have a lot more people advocating for her based on the location that she's in. There's going to be a lot of resources for her. So it is important right now that our priority and our focus be in the Dallas area.
Yeah. So if you're one of those people that are like, please come to Plano, please come to Frisco, please come to Allen. Again, this whole conversation and what's been had in spaces where the really small minority are people of color, specifically Black women, make sure your cities are safe and equitable enough for people to want to open their stores there, and make it an inviting space so that there can be more Black-owned businesses and people of color, more diversity in your cities. And exactly like Leyland said, going from Farmers Branch to like a Frisco, it's like we don't want to have that same issue, and now we're here again, and we have to go look, and then the prices have jumped.
Absolutely. And I think something that was great yesterday is when we had our discussion, I was actually able to educate people on the things that we're looking for, and that's something that we've spoken about, is just being able to educate people. If you are a business owner and you would like to find somewhere, what are the requirements? What's the criteria? How can we prepare you? How should you package yourself? And so those are all things that myself and then the company that I represent, Onyx Legacy Group, are focused on, is making sure that we can also educate and empower other business owners, especially minority business owners.
I love that. I love that. If you don't mind just saying again, like the locations that you're looking at, and maybe we can have the chat put in
where they like.
Yeah.
So we have Bishop Arts.
Oh. No.
Oh. Okay, so we just have a few places in Dallas, and we are going to review them, and then we will be more mindful and intentional when we choose those places. So for now, we're not going to be too descriptive on where we're going.
Yeah, yeah. But if you want BLACKLIT to be your neighbor, like Layla mentioned, if there's a space that you're like, oh, this meets the requirements of parking, this is an environment where you feel like Nia Taylor Clark would be safe, and the women that are working in her bookstore, that it's a big enough space. And if you've been to BLACKLIT and you know the kind of environment that they have there, that you feel like even stylistically that it fits the requirements, make sure, you reach out to, how can they find you?
They can actually send me an email at Laylen, Laylen, at onyxlg.com. That's ONYXLG.com.
Yeah, so this is like, kind of like, you were there yesterday. It's like such a beautiful community effort. And even the fact that Nia is allowing people to be a part of the process just shows you her heart for community. And it's not just about her, but she really does care about, her patrons and the people that want to experience BLACKLIT. So I love that.
Me too.
Quentin, before we start wrapping up, is there any questions in the chat?
I think the people have spoken. No Highland Park.
Period.
No,
you know,
they said no.
They're real for that. Because I live close to that area, and that's true.
It's interesting.
It is. It's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, we don't.
Do they have any other no's?
Yeah, is there any other no?
As of now, I think there's just a big consensus on No Highland Park.
All right.
And there was a shout out for Nia's earrings. They loved her.
Oh, shout out to 2113.
They are amazing.
She makes art and she makes jewelry out of papers. Book pages.
Book pages. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. Is that kind of all that we... If anybody, I'll give everybody a couple of seconds to...
There is, how do they stay connected with BLACKLIT? So what are the ways to stay connected? If it's socials or email, what's the best ways for people to stay connected?
Yeah, I think kind of like what Nia mentioned earlier is following I Am BLACKLIT, and that's across her socials. So that's gonna be on Instagram, on TikTok. Shoot her a message, interact with her content. She'll continually update you guys on the process of, where her and Laylen end up, deciding or, continuing finding spaces and stuff.
And is there like a general email that they can send resources or suggestions?
Yes, info@supportblacklit.com. That's info@supportblacklit.com. So just like Nia mentioned, there are a few different groups that they can participate in. If you're a Black man or you're part of a Black fraternity, this was one of the things that was mentioned yesterday. Whether it's like a cigar club or just a D9 group, if you're a group of Black men, there will be, even when they move to the next location, we just want to send a message of protecting Black women, protecting Black businesses, and to let people know that we are in it together. They cannot divide us. So if you are part of any Black fraternity, Black men's group, or you're just a Black man yourself, make sure to send an email to her and let her know that you want to be a part of the security team, because I mean, yesterday we saw people show up and they were willing to take shifts and volunteer. There is going to be a Christmas event coming up, so if you want to volunteer for that, some of the ideas that were mentioned yesterday was just having just bodies in the bookstore. So, you know, obviously Nia can't put everybody on the payroll, but if you just want to volunteer by like coming in and reading your books there and just making sure again that there is a community presence, and whoever attempts to harass or even has that idea knows that there's a whole community behind BLACKLIT, and it just sends an overall message about protection around Black businesses. So yeah, send all of your questions, ideas. I know if you're a brand ambassador, if you're a Black author, if you're just an influencer who does happen to have a big following, one of the most important ways to support is just getting this story out, not just for BLACKLIT, but just on behalf of Black businesses, on behalf of Black women, on behalf of just the Black, you know, just being a Black, having the whole Black journey. So yes, email info at, what was, oh, support at BLACKLIT.
Info at support BLACKLIT.
Okay. Info at supportblacklit.com. Info at supportblacklit.com for any questions, concerns, ideas, or if you want to find out how you can volunteer. And is there some other questions in the chat?
I think the last question we'll take is, what are some simple ways, I think we kind of mentioned early on, putting books on lists. What are some like simple ways that people can get involved in their own community and sphere of influence?
Yeah, you guys, support any of the Black businesses in your community, especially when it comes to books. Like we've mentioned, this is, you know, the microcosm is BLACKLIT, but we have a larger issue around the Department of Education. Even before like Trump came into presidency, we see in certain states them pulling books of color. So one of the things that we were just, I don't know if that was new to you, but for me that I was put on to Privy is going to my local libraries and put those books on the list. Be redundant, you know, maybe get on a schedule. I'm planning to at least try to go in once a week to put on, you know, those same books. So let's just be, and you know, these are ways that we can advocate without having to even spend money. It just takes a couple of minutes out of our day to make sure that we're advocating. And also just again, like supporting, you know, our dollars mean something. Being a consumer means something in this capitalistic nature of living here. So spending your dollars on Black books, on Black authors, and then supporting them by following their pages, interacting with the content, commenting, subscribing, sharing. And specifically, I know if you go to Nia's page, which is at I am BLACKLIT, she has like a really good reel on there that kind of summarizes everything that's happened. Share that story and make sure it gets out. So yes, sharing content, physically going to your libraries, checking out Black books, and advocating for Black books by making sure that we get them on those lists. So those are ways to support. But thank you guys. Sorry for the technical difficulties at the beginning. Thank you again, Laylan, for covering the real estate portion of this. And thank you for Nia coming out and just being an overcomer and an example to the rest of us of what it looks like not to stand down in the face of injustice, but to show those people who think that they can bring us down, that they cannot. And thank you to the community that showed up yesterday and who are here on the live now. Let's continue to show up whenever we see moments of injustices, like the book that she mentioned, like use your voice and speak up. But yes, thank you again. And we'll talk soon. Nice.
It wasn't Highland Park, so it worked out anyways.
Yeah.
It's Victory Park.